Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Intuition Activation. I'm your host, Jessica Rachel, a spiritual medium and intuitive coach, and I'm so excited that you're here. And I'm even more excited for today's episode because now that we have a pretty good idea of what your spirit guides are, what they are not, and how they work for you, and if you didn't listen to last week's episode, definitely make sure that you go back and listen to that episode because it is such an in-depth conversation about everything that a spirit guide is. But now I'm ready for us to start talking about what you really came here for, which is how do you start connecting to your spirit guides, to your intuitive abilities? And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how to set up a healthy channeling practice and get yourself mentally prepared to begin to connect to your spiritual team. And I'm also going to give you some tips and tricks so that you can get started trying to actually connect to your guides and maybe get some real answers from them after today's episode. So I can't wait for you I can't wait to dive in. But before we do, and before we get started, if everything that you're hearing in today's episode is really resonating with you and you're ready to dive in faster, you want more information, you want to dive in and start connecting to your guides, and you don't want to wait for next episode, then I'm so excited to share with you that I do have a mini course called my Intuition Activation Mini Course. And this is a very short but detailed and juicy course full of all of the information that you need to start connecting to your spirit guides today. And this course is going to walk you through all of the ways and the unique ways that you might be able to be connecting with your guides. So you're going to figure out what your unique intuitive abilities are, learn how to hone in on that, and start to tune in to your way of connecting. I also give you some really, really tangible and practical ways to begin to start connecting. There is a really deep guided meditation and intuitive activation to help fine tune and turn on your intuitive gifts, and then several exercises that you can use over and over again to help you get real answers from your spirit guides whenever you need them. I'm so excited for this course, and I'm so excited to share it with you guys. And the best part about this course is that when you purchase the course, you also gain access to my private Facebook community where you can meet with other aspiring intuitives, other people who are trying to connect to their guides and are on the same path as you. And you have access to me in this Facebook group, so you can ask questions as you're going along through the course. And I will show up in there live every once in a while, and we do guided meditations and intuitive activations together. So if you ask me, that's the best part about buying this course. And so just for my podcast listeners, you guys get a 10% discount on the mini course by heading over to my website. So it's jessicarachel.co/mini course. And using the promo code Intuition, all caps, you get 10% off just for podcast listeners. So make sure to go on in there and let me know how it goes. I can't wait for you to start connecting to your intuitive abilities and getting answers from your spirit guides today. But enough about the mini course. Let's dive into today's episode because it's a juicy one. And, the first thing that I really want to mention here when we talk about setting up your intuitive practice or beginning to connect with your spirit guides is that everything is about intention. This is a relationship that you are building with your spirit guides. These are individuals, these are beings of light who want to connect to you. They want to build a relationship with you. So as soon as you begin to make it clear to them that you're trying to connect, that you're trying to build this relationship, then the easier it gets and the smoother this relationship becomes. So with more practice and with more connection and more frequent connection, the easier everything gets. And so that is absolutely key to remember here, that the more you show up, just like in any friendship, right? The more that you show up, the easier this gets. Practice really does make progress, or perfect. There's no perfect, but definitely progress. And so definitely make sure to show up with your guides and connect with them and let them know that you are wanting to connect with them. So let's talk about the way that you should sort of create a healthy practice when trying to connect with your guides. And I would say that kind of the build up to connecting with your guides doesn't have to be this long-winded, scary thing. You have an intuitive ability. It's within you. You're born with it. And so there are a couple of little things that I'm going to recommend that you do, but all of these things are optional. You don't have to do any of these things to connect with your intuition. It's just nice to have a routine to sort of signal your mind to get ready to connect. Okay, so let's get started on the first thing that I think is absolutely key to connecting with your guides. This is probably the biggest barrier to entry for most people, which is that in order to connect with your guides, you have to get out of your head and into your body. What do I mean by this? You have to be able to move away from the chattery thoughts of everyday life that are constantly plaguing your thoughts and your brain. If you are constantly thinking about your agenda and your schedule and the things that have to get done, and your worries about the future and your worries about the past and all of those things, then you don't have space or room for the quiet that you need for your spirit guide to come through, for you to listen to your intuition. And it can be so hard for us to get to that quiet space. And so this is why I say you have to do whatever works best for you to find a way to get out of your head and into your body, focusing on the functions of your body. Now, there are a couple of ways that you can do this. Many spiritual teachers will say that the number one way to do this is meditation. And while they're not wrong, it's not the only way to do this. And so, yes, meditation is one of the ways that works for me. And this is a good way to get away from your chattery thoughts. It forces you to be quiet. It forces you to go inward. It forces you to really take a pause from your day-to-day life. Sorry if I sound really out of breath. If you don't know already, at this point in at the time of filming this or recording this podcast, I am 6 months pregnant. So I do apologize if I sound really out of breath. I did not just run up a flight of stairs. I am just 6 months pregnant. So sorry about that. I'm going to try to take some deeper breaths here, maybe meditate a little bit. Ooh. Okay. Um, but as I said, meditation works for some, and it works for me absolutely. And I do want to underline here that there are different types of meditations. So if you have, meditation is kind of like an umbrella, right? There are, sport being the big category and a million different types of sports you can play. Meditation is the same thing. Meditation is the umbrella. There are hundreds of different types of meditation that you could try. And so if you are new to meditation, or you find that you've tried it once and it hasn't worked for you, maybe you need to try a different type of meditation. There's mantra meditation, also known as Vedic meditation. There's the type of meditation where the whole point is to just notice your thoughts as they pass by, right? And then refocus. There's meditation where you simply focus on your breath. And there's visualization meditation. And those are just to name a few. For me, I find visualization meditation to be the most effective for my brain. I find that I need to have something else to focus on as opposed to trying to focus on not focusing on anything. I have ADHD. It was diagnosed with ADHD when I was maybe 6 or 7 years old. And so when you tell my mind to do nothing, it's going to do everything but nothing. And so I definitely need to have something else to focus on. And by conjuring up a image of nature in my mind and focusing on myself walking through that place in nature and focusing on my breath in that place in nature, that really allows me to get centered, get grounded, and focus on something beyond my chattery everyday thoughts. But like I said, if meditation doesn't work for you, this is not the only way to get in. So other things that you can do to get out of your head and into your body is literally to focus on your body. So this can look like doing something physical, going for a walk, going for a run, working out, doing a HIIT workout, anything that's going to get your body moving, right? When we do any form of exercise, it allows us to sort of achieve that endorphin high, which does quiet the mind. And so if you find that sitting still is not your thing, and maybe it isn't for a lot of people, then you don't have to use meditation to get there. You can definitely, go for a walk, go for a run, and then try to connect to your guides afterwards. You can also get into your body by doing breath work. This is a fantastic way to drop in, right? For me, I'll even start by taking just 5 deep breaths before doing my meditation to remind myself to get centered and get grounded. But for some people, a few deep breaths is all it takes to get out of their head. Some people need to do a more intense version of breath work, and I am no expert on breath work. I think I've only taken one class in my entire life. It was extremely effective. I will say I connected to spirit so quickly, so easily, so powerfully after doing a breathwork class. I just haven't had the chance to dive in deeper. But definitely there are many methods of breathwork techniques that you can try that will allow you to dive in deeper and to get connected on a much deeper level. So I highly recommend that. And the other thing that you can really do is think about something that you can do with your body that allows your mind to sort of go on autopilot, so to speak. So for a lot of people, this can look like keeping your hands busy. Think about someone who sees, painting a picture as putting them into a meditative state, right? Even folding laundry or washing the dishes, right? It's something that it's mindless enough where you don't have to actively focus on it, but you still can, be keeping your hands busy enough that allows your mind to sort of go to other places or go to a calmer space. And so you really have to kind of figure out what is the thing that's going to work for me that allows me to get out of my head and focused on my body. Maybe it's a combination of a couple of these things. Maybe it's none of these things, but you really do have to sort of experiment. What do I have to do that's going to get me not focused on my day-to-day things that I need to do on my schedule and just allowing myself to get quiet and go within? So that's number one. You really have to do this first before you try connecting to your spirit guides. And again, it can be as simple as taking 5 deep breaths and then diving in, but you have to do something. I always recommend it. Now, the other thing that I feel is really important, especially when you're starting out and trying to connect to your spirit guides, is finding a space where you know you will not be interrupted. Imagine getting yourself into this or trying to get yourself into a quiet and calm state of mind, but wondering if and when somebody's going to barge in through the door, maybe a kid or a dog or a spouse, right? Are you really going to go within? Are you really going to calm down and get centered? Probably not. You're always going to have one eye or one ear on the door. So find a door that locks, or, the bathroom is not a bad place to connect to your guides, although not maybe the most comfortable or ideal situation, does have a lock on the door. And so, find your space that you're not going to get interrupted in. And, it also can help, although it's not necessary, it can help to make this space feel calming, soothing, and pleasing, making it a space that doesn't feel cluttered to your mind, right? If you're sitting in a room that's full of unfolded laundry, perhaps that's what you're going to be focusing on, all of the to-dos that you have to do. So if you can, if it's a clear space, if it's a calm space, maybe you fill it and create an altar with all of your beautiful favorite spiritual tools, crystals and candles and what have you. Again, all are optional, but all of these things, when you go into that physical space, signal to your brain, it's time to relax, time to get out of my head and into my body and connect. And I know that when I come into my office, I can feel my body instantly relax because I know this is my space to connect. And so all of these things create cues for me to start preparing to connect in my sacred space to my intuitive abilities and to my spirit guides. Do I need these things now that I've been channeling for 5 years? No, I don't need them all the time. I can connect anywhere, and so can you. But especially when we're starting out, it's nice to have some of these quote unquote training wheels in place to, again, keep reminding your body to take a break, to relax, tell your thoughts to take a pause so that you can get quiet and start to connect. So we've set our intention. We're going to connect to our guides. We've figured out a way to get out of our head and into our body, and we've gone into our space. Now we have to do the most important thing, is call upon our spirit guides. Spirit guides, as much as I wish I could say they could read our minds, they absolutely can't. There is something to be said about telepathy once you're sort of tuned in or tapped in and you've built a stronger relationship with your guides. You can definitely communicate with them telepathically. But again, this is for the beginner. When you are starting out, when you are first starting, you must speak to your guides out loud. You must signal to them that you are trying to call them in, that you're wanting to speak to them in this moment. And so this can look like a simple, easy statement such as, spirits of the light, are you here with me? Or calling upon my spirit guides, or spirit guides, I invite you to come and join me in this moment. Find a sentence that feels good for you and use it, but let them know and say it out loud. Spirit guides, come and join me. You can call in more than your spirit guides if you want to. I know that when I work with a client, I'm going to call in a bunch of different things, like your whole spiritual team I'm calling in, right? So I'm calling upon your spirit guides and your loved ones and your ascended masters and your angels and your archangels. And then I'll even blanket it and say all of the beautiful, benevolent beings of light who support you, right? Now that's a mouthful, and that's a long-winded way of just calling in your spirit guides. So find what works for you. Call upon your spiritual team. It's enough to just say, spirits of the light, are you here with me? Or spirits of the light, I invite you in to come and join me in this moment. And that's really opening it up for you. That's starting your process of calling them in. Now, the next thing I'm going to recommend that you do is call in for protection. Now, I don't want to sit here and scare you and tell you that there are things or negative entities that we need to worry about, because I don't really necessarily believe that that's true. I think that everything is neutral, and we as humans tend to decide whether something is positive or negative or good or bad. And that's really kind of part of the beautiful, binary that is living on the 3D planet. However, there is a possibility to feel overwhelmed by spirit the first time that you call them in. Spirit is kind of like, they're like little puppies or children. They're so excited to be connecting with you that they just want to jump all over you and tell you a million things about your life. And sometimes that can feel a little overwhelming. That can feel a little bit like being bombarded, right? And sometimes when we turn on our portal, when we activate our intuitive abilities, other beings, beings that we may not necessarily have wanted to call in, see us as this big, beautiful portal of light. And they're attracted to it like you're a lighthouse, like moths to a flame. They're like, oh, I want to see what's over there. I want to see what's going on with this light that's kind of been turned on. And so again, I can't tell you if these things are positive or negative. I have never had a negative experience or an experience with a possessed or negative entity. It's not the case, but in order to protect yourself and know that you're protected, it doesn't hurt to call in for protection and know that by setting the intention, it is so. And so all you have to do is call in for protection. So there's two things that I recommend that you do. One is you ask that you only connect to those of love and of light, or of the highest vibration. Because when you call in the highest vibration, which is love, by the way, when you call in the highest vibration, nothing that exists on a lesser frequency can exist in that space, right? The lower frequencies do not exist when you call in the highest frequency. They can't live in that area. So call in the highest vibration, right? I'm going to call upon those of love and of light and of the highest vibration or the highest good. Pick one of those or say all three of them, right? And when you do that, again, once you set the intention, it is so, nothing negative can now come in. You've created a layer of protection around yourself. And the other thing that you can do, and this is something that I like to do, it's totally up to you, is that you can call in Archangel Michael. Now this is, or an archangel of any kind for that matter. And I'll do a whole other episode on what archangels are, and angels for that matter, and how they work with us and how they protect us. But just for the purposes of this episode, know that you can call upon Archangel Michael and ask him to protect you in that moment. And so, once you ask it, it is so. When you set the intention, it happens. And so you can say, I call in those of love and of light, of the highest vibration and the highest good, and I'm going to ask Archangel Michael to protect me as I'm doing this channeling session. Now you've done everything, right? And I will say, when we call in for protection, right, this is also sort of this big barrier to entry that a lot of us have when we're starting out and wanting to connect with our spirit guides, because a lot of us worry that, what happens if I turn this on and I don't like how it feels? Or what if I turn this on and I don't know how to turn it back off, right? then we don't really allow ourselves to go deep enough or to relax enough to let it happen. We almost subconsciously block ourselves from letting it come through because there's fear in the way. And so by creating this practice of calling in for protection, I can give myself sort of this security blanket or this knowing that I am, there is no reason for fear here. And we can go in with faith that it's going to go work out well. And this is really going to be so helpful in connecting to your guides. So after we've called in our guides, we've invited them into the space, we've called in for protection so we know we have ourselves covered. Now you have to set another intention. You have to tell your guides what it is that you're wanting from them. Why are you connecting with your guides in the first place? What are you calling them in for? And, as I spoke about in the last episode, your guides can help you with so many different things. But most importantly, they need to know sort of what type of advice they're going to be giving you. What are you calling them in for? And so are you asking them to help you reactivate and strengthen your intuitive abilities? Well, they're going to come in with a different energy than if you're asking for advice. And so think about it. Why am I trying to connect to my guides today? Do I just want to know what they have to share with me, or do I want them to help me with something? So, for the purposes of being a beginner, I would recommend both. I would say ask them to help you reactivate and strengthen your gifts. You're wanting to connect with them and you want to get better at connecting with them. Ask them for their help. And so, how do you do this? You're going to say, Spirit guides, please reactivate and strengthen, and then choose a gift or two that you want them to reactivate and strengthen. Maybe you want to reactivate your seeing gifts. Maybe you want to be able to hear better. Maybe you want to be able to feel more, right? I usually recommend at least seeing and hearing because I feel like you can get a really good gauge on what's coming through if you get a visual and a sound that or some words that go along with it. So definitely say, please reactivate and strengthen my seeing and hearing gifts as they come through. And then you can also ask them maybe that you want them to provide you with clarity today, right? You're going to ask them for advice. Please offer me the clarity that I most need today. If you're going to be asking them a specific question. So that's really kind of your build up to connecting to your spirit guides, right? So I'll review again really quickly, right? But you're going to do something to get out of your head and into your body, right? Whether that's going for a walk or doing a workout, then you're going to find your sacred space where you won't be interrupted. Then you're going to call in your guides out loud. Spirits of the light, are you here with me? Then you're going to call in for protection and you're going to say, I ask for only those of the highest vibration, the highest good of love and of light. And maybe you'll ask for Archangel Michael to protect you as well. Then you're going to ask your guides what you want from them. Please reactivate and strengthen my seeing, hearing, and feeling gifts and offer me the clarity that I need today. Now you've done everything that you need in order to start communicating and speaking to your guides. And this is when you can go ahead and start to talk again out loud to your guides. Ask them a question. What do I need to know today? Or something very specific. What decision do I make about this particular dilemma I'm having? Please help me. Please show me a sign. Anything that you really need to know. Now, when we're first starting out and we're not sure of ourselves, we're not trusting our gifts just yet, it's very important that you try at first to ask questions that you aren't necessarily attached to the outcome, something that you can be slightly more objective to. If you have a question and you're so certain there's an answer you want, you're not going to be open to hearing any other answer. You're not going to trust what comes through. So try starting by asking questions that are a little bit less important to you. It can be as silly as, what should I have for dinner tonight? And see if you get an image or hear something. Or maybe even ask a question about somebody else. What should my sister do in this situation with her boyfriend? Or something like that, right? Where you don't really have an attachment to the outcome. Because if it's something really important to you that you really are desperate for an answer, you're going to be gripping, white knuckling it to try and hear the answer. And it might block yourself from letting it come through. So start by asking simpler, easier questions that you don't care either way what the answer is, and get started on that. Now, when the information starts to come through, it's really going to depend on, which version of Claire you have most predominantly in terms of which way it comes through. And we're going to talk more about the Claires in, coming up episodes. But, for you, no, be open to everything. You might be predominantly clairvoyant, in which case the first thing that might come to mind is a visual in your mind's eye. This is going to look like your imagination, an image popping up in your head. Trust that because you've done this whole practice, that anything that is coming to mind in that moment is a channeled message. You didn't imagine it, didn't make it up. It is coming into your mind. If you were to hear something or hear a word that's coming through, it may sound like your own voice. The difference is it's going to come from the back of your head. But because, again, it's coming through in the context of calling in your guides, trust that you didn't make it up. Trust that it's coming from your guides in that moment. And so I really want you to try this. I want you to try doing these things. Maybe you're going to ask for a physical sensation, right? Spirit guides, give me a sensation to let me know that you're here with me. Please strengthen my physical sensations or my feeling intuitive abilities, and let them send a message through or send a sensation. Maybe you'll get tingling in your palms or a tingling in your forehead. Pick something and start to build this relationship with them. Start to ask questions. And the more you show up and the more you practice and the more you ask questions, the more likely you're going to start to let answers come through. And guys, this is really the nuts and bolts of it. This is it, right? You set up your practice and then you just keep showing up until finally one day a message does come through. But you really have to focus on getting out of your head and into your body and really get good at practicing to be relaxed enough and quiet enough for this information to come through without you having to try so hard, without you having to grip it so hard. So remember that this is a practice. Remember that you have to tweak it. Remember that you have to try different things. If going for a walk didn't work, then maybe you need to do a bigger type of exercise first, or try a different type of meditation first, or do a different type of breath work until you really feel yourself on that kind of endorphin high, so to speak, or relaxed enough to allow that quiet to come in. And once you figure it out, you'll know what your routine is, and you can kind of use it on repeat every time you're ready to connect with your guides. And I'm really excited for you to sort of get started on this. Give it a try. Like I said, this is the key to it. This is your practice. So practice it, show up, and do the thing. So I'm really excited to hear how you learn how to practice, or that how you begin to practice to dive into your intuitive abilities, how you set yourself up and start experimenting. You can always reach out to me, send me an email, write a comment, right? And let me know how this is going. And like I said before, if you really want to dive into connecting with your intuitive abilities, don't forget to grab the promo code Intuition10 and get my mini course off my website. And then, of course, if you just want me to connect for you, you can always head over to my website and book a session with me. That's at jessicarachel.co. And I would be so happy to channel your guides for you and offer you which way you might connect best. So I'm really excited for you to get started with this practice, and join me next week as we're going to start diving into the specific ways that your guides might be communicating with you and how you know which Claire is actually yours. I look forward to talking to you again soon, and good luck connecting with your guides. Sending so many good channeling vibes your way. Have a beautiful rest of your week. Bye, guys.